The day Mira snagged the Best Actress trophy, I was chillin' in the crowd. She was clutching the award, her grin missing any hint of the innocence and vulnerability from 5 years back when she stumbled upon me. To snag this accolade, the person I gotta give the biggest shout out to is Lena, my Mr. Yang. Her Mr. Yang wasn't me. Almost the moment Mira started talking, everyone in the hall shifted their gaze toward me with looks of pity and shock. They all knew Mira's triumph today was totally down to my backup and protection. I smiled quietly and was the first to start clapping, but the girl who had been in my heart since she was 16 had finally vanished. The day Mira took home Best Actress also happened to be her 29th birthday. Honestly, winning this award at 29 isn't exactly early fame, but Mira jumped into the biz late, only landing her first movie 3 years ago. That was also a film I personally crafted for her. Over 3 years, I slowly pushed Mira up to the top as the box office queen. If I directed a flick, she was always the leading lady. Because of this, I rubbed quite a few folks the wrong way during those 3 years, but I didn't give a damn. Watching the woman shine under the spotlight decked out in a champagne-colored gown, my mind wandered back to 3 years prior. Back then, I was 27 and already made a name for myself in the entertainment world, hailed as the most talented director of my time. My name guaranteed a movie's quality, no room for screw-ups. But nobody knew my entry into the industry was all for one person. For Mira. So when she showed up on that rainy night, soaked to the bone, my heart was anything but the calm exterior I showed. Inside, it was a storm. Uncontrollable. Mira was shivering from the cold at the bottom of the steps, looking up at me. Rainwater dripped down her neck and into her collar. "Director Jan, I heard you're casting the female lead for your new movie. Even though I'm just a newbie, I've been training for acting for a long time. I know a lot about your films. Can you watch me audition for a scene?" I didn't say a word, just took off my jacket and threw it over her shoulders. "No need for an audition. It's you," I told her. In that instant, Mira's face went blank for a second, then lit up with an incredibly bright and dazzling smile. Just like when she was 16, wearing that dress, standing among white doves, she became the turning point in my otherwise ordinary life. I had the guts to agree because Mira was the blueprint for all the female leads in my scripts. I only shoot stories I write myself, and she was my top pick. Over 3 years, I spent countless sleepless nights pouring all my creativity to bring Mira to the spotlight. Before coming here, she mentioned she had a surprise for me if she won this honor. Mira smiled. Her face on the big screen was flawless. Born to be a star. Stunning enough. And tough as nails. I want to thank my fans for their support throughout this journey. It's because of them I can stand here before you. Mira's voice was filled with emotion, her eyes shining with tears. For a moment, I almost felt like she was staring right at me. There's one person I must thank. Her voice blended with the sound of my heartbeat, and I couldn't hear anything else or see anyone else important. Mira locked eyes with me, and with those crimson lips, she delivered the most cutting words. The person I want to thank is Lena, my Mr. Yang. Lena, a senior in the entertainment industry, a former top actor. I caught a glimpse of the mocking smile on Mira's lips, and the confident facade I had kept up crumbled instantly. It wasn't me. The person she wanted to thank, the one she wanted to have, was not me. The venue was massive, yet I felt like a clown with nowhere to hide, everyone's eyes on me. For 3 years, the jealousy and resentment others felt because of my support for Mira were now dripping with mockery. I glanced at the photo on my phone of the girl in a white dress and smirked. "Congrats, starting with me!" The applause filled the entire hall. Under the spotlight, Lena walked onto the stage and then grabbed Mira's hand as they lifted the trophy together. He looked at Mira, smiling gently. "This trophy is something you truly deserve." I could already imagine the comments flooding Facebook tonight, praising them as the perfect match, a golden couple, or a solid alliance. Whatever it was, none of it had anything to do with me. I figured Mira didn't need my protection anymore. I stood up, using everyone's focus on them, and carefully turned to leave through the side door. But the host's voice stopped me. As we all know, every movie Mira has starred in since her debut has been directed by director Yan. Is there a special connection here? I turned back and met Mira's gaze across the room. Over these 3 years, everyone who met me gossiped about my relationship with Mira, but I always brushed it off with a laugh. Mira was a rising star, and neither love affairs nor rumors would help her, especially rumors involving me. An actor and a director, I've seen enough in the entertainment world to know how the media could twist things. Those terms should never be linked with Mira. I thought Mira would brush it off with her usual polite remarks. But to my surprise, she went along with the host's questions. The first time I met director Jan, he told me the female lead in his script was made just for me. Since our first collab, director Jan sought me out for every film. To me, he's like a mentor, so I never turned him down. Mira's tone was soft, but I felt like I'd been plunged into a cold abyss. It was like the girl who once held my hand, begging for my help. Never existed. Lena, picking up on Mira's words, added, "Mira is talented and beautiful. It's natural for a director to want her in his films, but I still hope some people won't use their past kindness to keep pressuring her." Lena's words were harsh, almost accusing me of exploiting Mira for publicity. Yet I had paid Mira for all her performances, and knowing she was unknown, I even gave her an extra $30K for the first 2 films. But now, in their story, I'd become someone who exploits past favors. I stood there, fists clenched, heart racing with anger, but Mira kept looking at me with that same gaze, proud, cold, even disdainful. What right did she have? I knew it wasn't the right moment to defend myself, so I turned and left. The live stream comments on Facebook had already gone wild. Of course, Mira and Lena's fans were backing them, while some level-headed netizens still had my back. But as a director, my fan base couldn't match theirs, and soon my Facebook was flooded with hate. The media started speculating, some even saying that without Mira, my films would be nothing. I bottled up my anger, ready to drop the truth on Facebook since I still had chat logs with Mira. But before I could post, I got a call from Mira. "Ken, I hope you can keep quiet about what happened tonight. Why should I? Otherwise, I'll tell the media you're responsible for your brother's death." Mira's tone was cold and emotionless, like an arrow piercing my heart. I felt my blood boiling, the wound letting in the cold wind relentlessly. But the one who hurt me was the girl I couldn't forget since I was 16. "Mira, what right do you have to treat me like this?" I closed my eyes, my voice shaking uncontrollably. But my vulnerability got no sympathy from Mira. "This is what you owe me." Owe or her? In this life, I owed no one except my brother. After saying that, Mira hung up. I listened to the dial tone and leaned my head against the window. My brother died when I was 13. We were twins, born with a congenital heart condition. Our parents abandoned me at an orphanage door. It wasn't until I was 8 that my brother found me and we discovered our connection. From then on, we often met. His presence filled the family void in my life, easing my pain and sorrow. My brother told me that after our parents left me, they argued nonstop and divorced. He stayed with our mother, who later remarried, but he wasn't happy in that family. On our 13th birthday, he promised to give me the gift our mother had given him. He said he'd gotten many gifts, and the next one should be mine. But that day, I waited long, and he never showed up. The snow covered the entire city. Following my brother's directions, I slowly walked to the address, only to find a horrifying sight on the snow-covered street. There was blood, bright red blood. My brother lay on the ground with a basketball rolling beside him. Later, our mother found me. She kept me with her, but she went mentally unstable after my brother's death. She often called me by his name, and I never corrected her. She divorced that man, and after my brother died, my heart condition healed. He gave me his heart. Before he died, my brother held my hand and said he was sorry for letting me suffer alone for so many years. But in truth, he did the most for me. After graduating middle school, I left home, and that's where I met Mira. She might have already forgotten me, a boy she briefly met on the street, but I remembered her. I remembered her dancing among white doves, her loud laughter, her bright and sunny face, and the small daisies she placed beside me. Are you my fan? Don't be sad. Getting a flower from your idol should make you happy. Let me light up your world. Mira reached out and tweaked the corners of my mouth, lifting them into a smile. I just stared at her as if at that moment I truly saw the angel my brother spoke of. Ken, what should we do about tonight? My assistant's voice broke my thoughts. I opened my eyes and looked at the now dark phone screen. People often talk about unforgettable first love. The Mira from before was indeed my unforgettable first love. But now, she meant nothing to me. I lifted my head and glanced at the moonlight hiding behind the clouds. Then I posted that article. Mira, you still don't get me. You don't know that some things have long been old wounds for me. How could they be the reason to stop me now? By the time I got home, my phone was blowing up with calls from Mira. When I didn't answer, she started blasting me with messages. Ken, what do you mean by this? Ken, answer the phone. You need to explain. Ken, don't ignore me. I'm scared. Don't like me anymore? Not gonna support me anymore? Didn't you say you'd always be my #1 fan? Mira's messages kept pouring in, so I muted her chat and opened Facebook. The article I just posted had already shot to the top of the trending list. There were still tons of insults from Mira's fans, but luckily, many rational voices were also there. So Mira wants to have it both ways. After using someone, she just boots them. I'm really worried about our Emperor Yang's future. To the person above, do you think Lena is any better? Our guy was just duped. Poor director Yan, so blinded by love. I laughed out loud at these comments. They were right. Being blinded by love is straight up dumb. Luckily, I'd already moved on. There was a knock on the door at this hour. It could only be Mira. I opened the door and saw Mira standing there furious. It was almost funny. In the first 2 years after we reconnected, she never looked at me like that. She was always sweet, kind, always the radiant sun. When did that change? Probably when online comments like, Mira can make it on her own without Ken, started popping up. She began thinking I was holding back her career, that I was too controlling, that I wasn't as great as she once thought. During our worst fights, she even pointed at my nose and cursed me out. In the end, I had to carefully apologize, begging for her forgiveness. Ken, what do you mean by this? Mira pushed my shoulder with her hand. I leaned against the doorframe, not moving, watching her coldly, and smirked. What do I mean? Mira, you slandered me. Can't I defend myself? People have the right to know the truth. The truth? You just want to ruin me. Is it because you're pissed about me going public with Lena? Ken, I'm just your puppet. All the kindness you showed me was because of her, Mira screamed. Her expression twisted, but her words left me confused. Her? Who is she? Seeing my silence, Mira seemed to take it as a green light. She raised her chin and sneered. Did I hit the nail on the head? Ken, do you think I don't know? The girl in the white dress in your photo album is your true love, isn't she? All the care and effort you gave me was just because I look like her, and you used me as a substitute. What era do you think we're in? You're still playing this stand-in game. Ken, you make me sick. Mira's eyes filled with tears. That photo, backlit, didn't clearly show the other person's face. So Mira thought it was someone else. I found it kind of funny because of this weird misunderstanding. She wanted to tear down all my efforts, my good rep, the movies I worked so hard on, the world I built. She ignored all of it. Yeah, an unforgettable first love is only meant to exist in memories. Mira, let's just say I messed up about you. I closed the door, leaving Mira outside, still hurling curses. But later that night, a recording of my convo with Mira leaked online. It was wrong of me to say those things, but it was all because I was in so much pain. The person I trusted, the one I was grateful to, only saw me as someone else's shadow. Turns out, everything was part of Mira's plan. I gotta admit, she's really good at twisting public opinion. In just a few hours, the online hate for Mira as ungrateful flipped to sympathy for her, as someone who'd been used as a stand-in. Even when some netizens pointed out the benefits Mira gained from this relationship, they were quickly shut down. The reason always stayed the same: Mira's wounded heart as a young girl. I didn't pay attention to the growing online frenzy. I just turned off my phone and crashed on the bed. I was too tired. So tired I needed some real sleep. For the first time in a long time, I dreamed of my brother. Even though he and I looked alike, no one ever confused me for him, probably because he always had a smile on his face. No matter the hardships, no matter how painful the situation, my brother was always smiling. Even facing death, he didn't show any fear. He just smiled, gently stroking my hair, and with that warm voice, he said his final words to me. "Ken, live your life well, live a good life." In the dream, I saw the scene of the first time I met my brother. I was sitting on a park bench, watching a family of 3 laughing together in the distance, with the cold wind seeping through my tattered clothes. That's when my brother walked up to me. His eyes showed surprise, but he didn't hesitate to squat down in front of me, staring at me. It took a while before he finally spoke his first words. "What's your name? I think I'm your brother." From the first glance, he knew he was my brother. Later, when I asked him how he knew, he said that seeing me sitting there like a little abandoned animal, he just felt like he had to protect me. And brothers are supposed to protect their younger siblings. I woke up with a start just as the first rays of the sun broke through. The images of my brother's final moments flashed in my mind. It took me a while to grasp my current situation. I picked up my phone, the screen flooded with missed calls and messages, most urging me to check Facebook. I opened WeChat, and Mira's pinned chat was glaringly obvious, her messages deeply disappointing. "Ken, you forced me into this. I, Mira, will never be anyone's stand-in." Looking back, it seemed like there were signs all along. About 3 months ago, Mira took part in a variety show where she met Lena and gradually began to distance herself from me. I had wondered why, but my time growing up in the orphanage made it hard to question others. Now I get it. She must have seen the photo in my album. She didn't ask me, and I didn't tell her because I always thought the past was the past. And as long as Mira was by my side now, that was enough. But I was wrong. I told my assistant I'd hold a press conference in 3 days to end this ridiculous farce. Most likely, it'd also mark the end of my career. I needed a break, and as my brother wished, I'd use this heart to see the world. But unexpectedly, I got a call from Lena. She said she wanted to talk. Honestly, I didn't think there was anything to discuss with Lena. Before all this, I only saw her as a famous actor in the industry, but Lena seemed insistent. Not wanting to waste more time, I agreed to her request. Lena set us up to meet at a private dining spot with good privacy. When I arrived at the private room, she was already sitting at the head of the table, spotting me. Lena flashed the fake smile I despised most in this biz. "Sorry, too many reporters are tailing me. Hope you don't mind meeting here, Director Yan." I shook my head. After all, Lena is famous, and not every restaurant is a good fit. "What do you want to talk about?" She crossed her legs and leaned back in the chair, eyes narrowing a bit. "I know who Director Yan's so-called unforgettable first love is. It's Mira." My hand trembled slightly. Before coming here, I'd imagined many things Lena might want to say, but this wasn't one of them. "What do you want to say?" I dropped my previously casual vibe and closely scrutinized the man before me. He wasn't a young actor fresh on the scene anymore. Time had given him a sense of steadiness and calm, like aged wine with a unique flavor. But it was precisely because of this that Lena's eyes seemed like bottomless pits, giving off an inexplicable fear. "Don't be nervous, Director Yan. Mira is a great prospect. She's beautiful, young, and most importantly, she's very naive." What Lena said was true. Over the past 3 years, under my protection, Mira had been shielded from the industry's grime. She was pure, and only pure actors can be painted with the colors a director desires. That's what makes them talented. So I chose her. A sense of unease started bubbling up inside me. What exactly are you trying to do? Director Yan, I'm not young anymore. You know how fast the entertainment industry changes. There are so many people eyeing my position, and I don't need to name them all. Using a female actor to keep the audience's attention. Using emotions to capture a portion of the fan base. Common tactics in the industry. Unfortunately, Mira was too attached to you, so I had to use an extreme method to uproot you from her heart. Lena's tone was flat, like he was discussing something mundane, but to me, every word was sharp. I swallowed hard, my hand clenched into a fist on my knee. So, you made her misunderstand? Lena raised an eyebrow, propping his chin with one hand. He didn't speak, but I already knew the answer. I stood up and strode over to Lena, grabbing his collar and yanking him out of the chair. I could accept Mira hating me because of a misunderstanding. I could even accept her falling for someone else. But I couldn't accept her becoming someone's plaything, a puppet controlled at will. Are you out of your mind? She's a person. So what? Helping me is her honor. Lena's eyes held no fear, no guilt, only a satisfied smile. I raised my other hand, ready to strike him. But the door to the private room was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Stop, Ken, what are you doing? It was Mira. She shoved me aside and then stood in front of Lena. That beautiful, stubborn face looked up at me, eyes full of anger. Mira, listen to me. This man is lying to you. I'm the one who's been lying to you. You wrote that woman into your script and then had me play her. Ken, you make me sick. Suddenly, I couldn't find the words to speak. Mira's voice was full of disgust for me. Lena, are you okay? I'm fine. Sorry for meeting him behind your back. I thought I could convince him to apologize to you. Lena had already put away his smile, now looking like a wounded puppy, carefully holding on to the edge of Mira's clothes. Fool, let's go. She shielded Lena as they walked past me. I reached out, grabbing her wrist. Mira, what if I told you that person has always been you? Mira didn't stop walking, just sneered. Ken, do you think I'm an idiot? If it were me, why didn't you tell me before? She left with Lena, the warmth in her hand slowly fading away. Why didn't I tell her? Because back then, I was too much of a mess. I always wanted to show her my best self, at least a version that had achieved something. Not the defeated person I was back then. But now, maybe it's too late for everything. It seemed Mira wanted to retaliate for the time I almost hit Lena. So the gossip accounts online started spreading stories about my childhood. They talked about how I grew up in an orphanage, how I did petty crimes to survive, and how I caused my brother's death. My assistant saw the comments online and was pissed, muttering under his breath but not wanting me to hear. He was scared I'd get upset, but in truth, I already knew. If they wanna hate, let them. It must be hard holding it in. My assistant put down his phone and sighed. Ken, are you really not gonna make movies anymore? I took a sip of wine, sprawling on the sofa. Over the years, I've made enough cash to live comfortably. I'm done. I want to go out and see the world. Making movies is a giving process, and these past 3 years, I've lost the ability to keep giving. My assistant seemed like he wanted to say more but stayed silent. But when I turned around, I saw his eyes filled with tears. I was a bit startled. Why are you crying? He wiped the corner of his eye with the back of his hand, his voice heavy. It's nothing. I just think it's a shame. Ken, you love movies so much, and now you're just giving them up. And Mira, you've done so much for her these past 3 years. And yet, in the end, he didn't finish his sentence. I looked at the wine swirling in the glass and said nothing. Do I regret all I did for Mira? Honestly, I don't. I see it as paying the price for the dreams of my youth. Besides, if it wasn't for Mira, I might never have entered the entertainment industry, never become a director. It was just because that little girl once said she wanted to stand in front of the camera one day and make everyone fall in love with her. On the day of the press conference, many people showed up, most hoping to grab a headline. Only a few were my fans. I sat on the stage, looking at the sea of people below, and suddenly found it kind of funny. At 16, I never imagined I'd one day stand before so many people thinking about it. I guess I should thank Mira. Thank her for helping me find something I love doing, and thank her for making so many people notice me. I believe everyone is here today because of the recent events on Facebook. First, I want to say I don't have an unforgettable first love. If I do, it's the 16-year-old Mira. I had Mira's photo processed to reveal her face and displayed it on the big screen. As soon as I finished speaking, the murmurs in the audience suddenly stopped, probably because they couldn't believe it themselves. I lowered my gaze and recounted the whole process of how I met Mira, including the story of my brother. These were things I once wanted to keep hidden, but now that I was finally saying them out loud, it didn't seem so hard. I became a director because of Mira, hoping one day to make her the leading lady in my films. Many people said Mira looks her best in my films, and that's because all my scripts, all my heroines, were written for her. But later, she finally showed up in front of my camera, yet she wasn't the person I once hoped for. I looked at the flashing lights in front of me and smiled brightly. The heart inside my chest belongs to my brother. He once told me he wanted me to live an extraordinary life. Before I turned 30, I lived for Mira and for movies. From now on, I want to live for myself, for my brother's heart. I won't be making any more movies because my leading lady has already died. The flashing lights stopped, and I saw my fans below, their faces streaming with tears. This might be unfair to them, but it's a choice I had to make. In the silent room, Mira's voice, trembling, was super clear. I don't know when you arrived or how much you heard, but none of that matters to me anymore. My gaze lingered on Mira for just a moment before I turned to look at the other reporters. Then I stood up and bowed to the crowd. Thank you all for your support over the years. I hope we'll have the chance to meet again. I turned and headed backstage, with Mira's voice calling my name echoing in my ears. But I didn't stop. There was no need to stop anymore. Mira caught up with me just as I was about to get into the car. She grabbed my arm, her eyes looking like she'd been crying. Why? Why didn't you tell me? I just looked at her, pulling my arm free after a moment. Was it necessary? Besides, didn't I tell you that day in the private room? The questions Mira wanted to ask got stuck in her throat. Her lips moved, but in the end, she only looked at me with a hopeful expression. Ken, I know I was wrong. Since that person was me all along, can we start over? Can I still be your leading lady? If this were in the past, I might have thought Mira couldn't bear to leave me, but now I couldn't even tell if she wanted me or just the role of leading lady in my films. Is it the fame? The status? I shook my head, not softening even a bit at her show of vulnerability. I can't capture your beauty anymore, Mira. The only version I can capture is the 16-year-old you. I got into the car, letting Mira bang on my window, but the car didn't stop. It drove off into the distance. The impact of this press conference was huge. The trending topics on Facebook were filled with my name and Mira's. Some even called for Lena and Mira to distance themselves from each other. I smacked my forehead, almost forgetting about this. Given the previous incident of the recording of my meeting with Mira, how could I have gone to see Lena without any prep? So, the convo in the private room became my final Facebook post. The people who'd been clamoring for Mira to stay away from Lena instantly went quiet. Meanwhile, onlookers were entertained, saying they were a perfect match, but none of this mattered to me. I bought a ticket for Tibet the next day, ready to see the place known for its freedom. The next day, when I opened my door, I found Mira sitting outside. It looked like she hadn't slept all night, her eyes bloodshot. When she saw me, Mira immediately stood up, but her quick move made her stumble from low blood pressure. I just stood there, not moving as she caught herself against the wall. Ken, where are you going? Does it matter to you? I'd never spoken to Mira in such a cold tone. She pressed her lips together, struggling to get used to it. Ken, do you really have to do this? We didn't have to end up like this. Mira's self-righteous tone almost made me laugh. The person who led us to this ending was always you, wasn't it? Mira, I don't regret meeting you or helping you for 3 years. But even a baby learns to walk on its own after 3 years. You can't keep sucking my blood forever, can you? Mira's face turned pale and she shook her head in panic, trying to explain. It's not like that, Ken. It's because I love you. It's because I love you that I got so angry, that I hated you. Love me. Maybe she did once. But when that love isn't pure anymore, due to personal gain, it just fades. And what about Lena? That was just to make you jealous. Mira's voice was frantic. I looked at the face that once filled my thoughts, but now it didn't move me. Mira, I believe you once loved me. But we can't pretend the past didn't happen. We both know how clumsy Lena's lies were. Yet you believed her. You didn't even ask me before nailing me to a cross of shame. That's not love, because with me, you didn't even have the most basic trust. You were just too eager to escape my control. So you chose the wrong path in your desperation. I ignored Mira's expression and walked away with my suitcase. Later, I heard that Mira waited a long time at the airport that day until she fainted from low blood sugar. Some were moved by her, while others thought it was just another act. In any case, it no longer concerned me. I traveled to many places, saw countless sights. When you're on the road, you don't dwell on all the nasty stuff from the past. I had a small portrait of my brother drawn and tattooed on my chest, so it felt like he was never really gone. The entertainment industry now seemed like something from a past life to me, but my assistant was still in the game. So he occasionally told me about Mira and Lena's recent moves. As Lena predicted, she gradually faded from the public eye. The roles she got shifted from the leading lady to supporting characters. And every time she popped up, netizens dug up old scandals and tore her apart. The things she said to me back then had turned into various catchphrases and jokes online. As for Mira, she's still active on screen, but after leaving my scripts and direction, her once praised acting skills became mediocre at best. Even her face started showing the wear of time. She pinned my name at the top of her Facebook, as if to show her deep feelings. But sadly, not many people cared. After a year of traveling, I returned to the city one day and by chance saw Mira while I was out. It looked like they were filming a TV drama. The director, whom I'd met a few times and who always liked my work, invited me to visit the set. I had nothing else to do, so I went along. Mira was playing some minor role, standing still as the leading lady splashed water in her face and slapped her. The young actress, looking about 23 or 24, kept messing up the scene, and Mira's expression visibly got worse. It was obvious to everyone that the young actress was doing it on purpose. The director whispered to me that she was a fan of mine and had never liked Mira. I just smiled, not stopping them or saying a word. As I left the set, I saw Mira standing in a corner, bent over, talking to the assistant director. She looked humble and pitiful. The white dress she wore had long lost its original charm. The wind blew through her hair, and Mira turned around, meeting my gaze. Her expression froze completely at that moment. I just smiled and waved at her. The thing about an unforgettable first love is that even when the person is right in front of you, it doesn't matter. She died at the age of 16,